Coming up on Colonial Crossfire. 2016 presidential politics. The Iran nuclear deal. And the refugee crisis. Joining us on the left, Andrew Falaci. On the right, Ali Kukos. And I'm your moderator, Andrew Desiderio. This is Colonial Crossfire. We are more than 400 days from Election Day 2016, but it's already high season for the politicking, campaigning, and mudslinging that come with it. Welcome back, GW, and welcome to Colonial Crossfire Season Number 6. I'm Andrew Desiderio. The 2016 presidential campaign is upon us, and it has given the political press a sea of unexpected storylines, from Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders to the so-called political establishment candidates faltering, and the potential for a dark horse candidate. We are entering what is likely to be the most uncertain primary season we've seen in a very long time. So, will Bernie Sanders overtake Hillary Clinton? Will Donald Trump hit a ceiling? And will Joe Biden jump into the race? Here to analyze that and more, our student panel. On the left, Andrew Falaci, a junior from Cape Cod, Massachusetts, majoring in international politics and economics. Andrew is interning at a lobbying firm this semester and recently studied abroad in Geneva, where he was published on the Iran nuclear deal. On the right, Ali Kukos, a sophomore from Newton, Massachusetts, majoring in political science and political communication. Ali is the director of membership for the GW Young Americans Foundation and the chair of GW Students for Carly Fiorina. Thanks to both of you for joining us. The top 11 Republican candidates faced off at the Reagan Presidential Library, where the topic of Trump dominated, and other candidates started taking aim at the GOP frontrunner. Namely, former HP executive Carly Fiorina attacked Trump's business record, and Trump hit right back. But one struggling candidate wasn't having any of their bickering.
While I'm as entertained as anyone by this personal back and forth about the history of Donald and Carly's career, for the 55-year-old construction worker out in that audience tonight who doesn't have a job, who can't fund his child's education, I got to tell you the truth. They could care less about your careers. They care about theirs.
So, Ali, as a Fiorina supporter, how do you feel about Governor Christie's criticism? Does he have a point that maybe it's important for someone to have political experience before they assume the highest office in the land?
I don't think that's necessarily true, because being president's about executive authority. It's about being able to be in a position of power. I almost think, in a way, being a governor or being a CEO of a company is almost better preparing you in some situations than being a member of Congress, because you do have that executive prowess beforehand. Mm-hmm. So he does make a point, but at the same time, I think Carson, even to some extent, and Trump do kind of have the experience to do well.
So on that note, we've seen, of course, the rise of political outsiders this election cycle. We have one poll on the Republican side had, of course, Donald Trump leading, Ben Carson in second place, and Carly Fiorina in third. Andrew, what do you think it says about, I guess, the Republican Party that we have these political outsiders who have never held public office leading the pack? What does it say maybe about the electorate or about the party?
Yeah, well, Andrew, before I begin, thank you for having me on, and thank you, GW-TV, for putting this production together. I think it's great. I think competition is something that is definitely needed, especially at this moment in the presidential campaign. I think Donald Trump, Fiorina, the numerous amounts of non-political candidates are definitely bringing items on the agendas of these traditional political candidates, and it's definitely having an impact as far as getting the media involved in certain things that maybe would not have been so involved beforehand. Mm-hmm.
Well, speaking of political outsiders, we have, of course, Bernie Sanders. Not that he's an outsider, but he is a senator, of course. Mm-hmm. He's an outsider in the respect that he doesn't have a super PAC. He is an avowed socialist. What do you think it says about the Democratic Party that someone like that is up top, and you see Hillary Clinton, of course, falling in the polls?
Sure. Well, Bernie Sanders definitely being in the race is going to be healthy for the Democratic side as they prepare to go against whoever the GOP nominee is going to be. Mm-hmm. And right now, Bernie's drawing huge crowds, and there's a reason for that. People are curious. They want to know what he is going to bring to the table that's different from Mrs. Clinton. And I think it's also good for Mrs. Clinton in order to prepare herself and to move her candidacy in a way that's going to be more well-rounded and speak more to the people and what they want versus just going ahead as an established candidate with her own platform.
Right, and
that hurt her before.
Yeah, I think it's no secret, of course, that Clinton's campaign folks are worrying about the rise of Bernie Sanders because he, when he first entered the race, he was this obscure guy. Nobody really knew who he was. Now his name ID has shot up. And at the same time, Hillary Clinton's numbers have been falling as, of course, the email controversy goes on. Allie, there are, of course, conflicting reports about whether there might have been classified information on that server. Of course, the FBI has it. Has that server. Do you think Clinton can get past this, and how does she get past this?
I think it's going to be really hard for her because through it, she already had kind of relatively high unfavorability numbers, and they've just kind of plummeted since then. Mm-hmm. And so if she really does want to kind of get past this, she has to appear sincere, and I don't mean like making kind of funny jokes, being like, oh, did I wipe my server clean with a cloth? Like that sort of thing isn't going to get people to trust her. She has to prove she's trustworthy, and right now she hasn't done anything to prove to the American people that she is a trustworthy candidate. Bernie Sanders, on the other hand, has. He's proven to them he's there for them, and she hasn't.
Right. Andrew, what do you think? Is she a vulnerable candidate? Is she trustworthy?
She's definitely trustworthy. In regards to the email controversy, look, she fumbled, and she's admitted that she fumbled on the issue. But since coming out, she's been very forward about what her intentions were, and let's make it clear. She never broke the law. The State Department has launched numerous investigations that she did not go against any of their protocols. She shouldn't have been using two servers. Now, going forward as a candidate, the most important thing for her to do is to be more open with the public. That's something Bernie Sanders is very good about doing. He's drawing these huge crowds because he wants to get out there. He wants to give these speeches. Hillary is a more closed-off candidate at the moment because she is the front runner. She does have a large record that's coming behind her. But as a former senator, former secretary of state involved in this current administration, it is more difficult for her to come out and be that welcoming candidate that Bernie is, but she's going to have to do it. And going back to my first point in the last segment, that's exactly why Bernie is a good thing for the Clinton campaign.
For the Democratic Party, you think?
Yeah, and overall.
Okay. Allie, do you think Clinton's vulnerability I guess, is elevated by the fact that we see all this speculation about Joe Biden maybe entering the race? Andrew mentioned someone who's open and tends to be a very public person. Joe Biden has been that, but since the death of his son has really laid low a bit, he's kind of brought himself back into the public eye as he kind of mourns the death of his son. Do you think he's going to jump into the race?
I think there's definitely a really good likelihood of that. The DNC has basically been prepping for him to kind of enter the race. They've been saying they welcome the opportunity for him to join and that sort of thing. And I think with Clinton's kind of vulnerability right now, and they're worried about Bernie Sanders because the possibility of him getting elected in a general election is less than likely. So I think they really are kind of looking to him, waiting to see what'll happen. And I do think down the road, you could definitely see him entering the race.
Yeah, as Allie mentioned, of course, the DNC might be prepping for a Biden entry, but they certainly, with their debate schedule, are angering some non-Clinton supporters, namely Martin O'Malley and Bernie Sanders, because you see that their debate schedule, they only scheduled 6 debates, and some critics would say that the goal of that is kind of just to coronate Hillary Clinton, make sure she's not a damaged candidate as she comes out of the primary and into the general, maybe a stronger candidate to face the Republican nominee, whoever that may be. Andrew, what do you make of the DNC's decision to sort of limit the debate schedule?
Well, I don't think they are necessarily looking to limit in order to favor Hillary Clinton. In fact, I just saw an interview recently where she was very open to the idea of having more debates. So more debates is something that I think all of the candidates are looking forward to. I'm surprised that the DNC has not already produced and scheduled a debate to go against these 2 GOP debates. That's something that's going to help all the candidates. And now, in regard to Joe Biden, he's been traveling around the country a lot, mimicking what would be a pre-candidate travel schedule. So we'll see if he jumps in.
Right.
But the main idea here is we've only been, or we have a long time to go. And the more candidate, the more dialogue there is, the better for the party.
And there certainly will be more of that, more dialogue to come. Thank you, guys. We'll be back with more panel debate in just a moment, but first we'll send it over to G Week anchor Mary Grace Braun for a GW-TV news break. Mary Grace?
Thanks, Andrew. It will be a historic event. The Pope is coming to Washington, D.C. for his first visit to the U.S. See what GW students have to say about it. We'll also talk with a GW student who was just elected to the Advisory Neighborhood Commission. making her the youngest elected official in the district. And Jon Stewart is putting on a sold-out show next month right here on campus to headline Colonial's weekend. Tune in next week right here on GWTV for all of these stories and more. Andrew?
Thanks, Mary Grace. We'll look forward to that. The Iran nuclear deal is all but sealed, but Congress is still arguing over its merits. Will Iran be held in check? Are they further from or closer to a nuclear bomb as a result of the deal? We'll ask our panel when we come back.
The George Washington University, at the intersection of policy, practice, and research, connecting all that Washington has to offer with an intellectual environment that drives progress, transforming vision into action, offering learning experiences that are rigorous, real-time, and real-world. In a city shaping the future, George Washington is a place where faculty and students don't just study the world, they work to change it.
Wonderful academic institution with a fine athletic tradition.
Patricio Garino throws it down with two hands.
Wonderful city. It's a great place to go to school.
Keith and Savage open down the right side. Will go and Duncan with his right hand.
Not just a family, it's a whole community.
Armwood Duncan with 1.9 seconds left. Armwood, a thunder slam. 81-80 George Washington. A huge victory for the Colonials.
Welcome back. Right here on this program in April, we discussed the Iran nuclear agreement when it was simply a framework. But now the final deal has been agreed upon by the U.S., 5 other major powers, and of course, Iran. The deal would, among other things, place restrictions on Iran's nuclear program in exchange for doing away with crippling sanctions. Here's President Obama defending the agreement back in July.
With this deal, we cut off every single one of Iran's pathways to a nuclear program, a nuclear weapons program. And Iran's nuclear program will be under severe limits for many years. Without a deal, those pathways remain open. There would be no limits to Iran's nuclear program, and Iran could move closer to a nuclear bomb.
But after continued scrutiny from Republicans in Congress and on the campaign trail, a handful of congressional Democrats have voiced their concerns with the deal. So, Andrew, why is this an overall good deal?
Yes, so Andrew, this is a very crucial point in our international diplomatic history. And the reason is because over the last few years, Iran has gotten closer and closer to producing a nuclear weapon. This deal ensures the security today that their breakout time is going to be pushed way back, and also throughout the next 15 years, and 25 years, we're going to be putting on the most intense investigative tactics with the IAEA and ensuring that all aspects of nuclear production in Iran are blocked.
Yeah. So, Ali, there seem to be 2 radically different interpretations here. We have, of course, one side who says that Iran will be further away from a bomb, and the other side that says Iran will be closer to a bomb as a result of this agreement. Both sides read the same agreement. Why are there such radically different interpretations of the same document?
I think it stems from a place of mistrust, in all honesty, because why should we trust Iran? They haven't really proven to us in the past that we can trust them. It's a country that has continuously caused problems in the Middle East. We're supposed to be supporting our ally Israel, and by letting them essentially kind of get one step closer to creating a nuclear weapon, which would end up happening, we're not helping them, and we're just making a worse situation and creating somewhat of an arms race. And I think that's what Republicans are worried about.
Yeah, so Andrew, I want you to first address the arms race component that she brought up. And secondly, given that Israel, of course, vehemently opposes this agreement, how does this affect our relationship with Israel?
All right, well, first to address the arms race. Currently, Iran has a breakout time of 2 to 3 months, and the sanctions that we had put in place going back to 2007 obviously did not do enough in preventing them from developing their uranium enrichment capabilities. This deal currently is the most comprehensive way for us to put many different facets of security protection against Iran from developing a nuclear weapon. It also allows us to have the ability to snap back on all of those sanctions with the international powers that we negotiated the deal with in accordance with us.
Right, but how of course, the sanctions are being lifted, so how do we kind of control the money that's going to be flowing to Iran as a result? Is there some mechanism in the deal that can kind of quell the concerns of Republicans and also some Democrats?
Well, look, we have to take a wider aperture and look at this from an international perspective. The deal is just not between the United States and Iran. The deal is between the P5+1 and many UN charters. So the money is going to be released by Russia, by China, by Germany, and the other members, regardless of whether the United States signs on or not. We're still going to impose sanctions against Iran for a number of different reasons, sponsoring terrorism, and other relations going back to 1979. The deal ensures that all of those capabilities are in place to impose further military action or other diplomatic means, putting the sanctions back on with this framework going forward. Mm-hmm. If we didn't have the framework, we wouldn't have that in place, and Iran would be able to develop a nuclear weapon much sooner than it would be further along, which would be harming Israel more than this deal was.
Ali, some supporters of this deal have said there's two options that we have. One, this deal, or two, war. Do you reject that idea?
I think that's an inaccurate idea in the sense that we could get closer to no war or no agreement. You just have to go about it in a different way. It's very kind of quick the way it's all happening. We're going to remove sanctions. We're going to take restrictions off, and instead they could prolong that timeline. Instead, we could avoid war if we just kind of prolong everything instead of making a very snap decision towards it.
So on another point related to this, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been lobbying as forcefully as he can against this deal. Given that he so vehemently opposes it, how does this affect the relationship that not only President Obama and Prime Minister Netanyahu have, but the relationship that the two nations have going forward?
I think it greatly strains it because we're supposed to be their ally. We're supposed to be defending them at whatever we possibly can and helping them. And by going basically against them and turning our back on them in some regards, we're completely straining our relationship with them. And I definitely think it's going to cause some problems in the Middle East in the future.
Yeah, so Andrew, we had an amendment go through the Senate recently. It was brought forward by Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. It basically said that as part of any nuclear deal with Iran, two things have to be in place. One, all the U.S. prisoners that are in that country have to be released, and two, Iran has to recognize Israel as a state. Mm-hmm. It only got 53 votes. It needed the 60 to clear the procedural hurdle in the Senate. Of course, because the Democrats filibustered. What do you think? Do you think that would have been problematic had the Senate passed that? What would have been problematic about those two components of the amendment?
Well, obviously we want those two components, but it would have been problematic in the sense that these international agreements are very hard to come by. And obviously this deal is not perfect. Okay, we could have done more things, but we're also dealing with another side of the negotiating table. Now, addressing Israel particularly, this deal does secure Israeli peace more than the current status quo. And I think the president has done a great job of explaining that. Secretary Kerry has explained it and has stood by it. And the reasons are quite clear. Iran today is very close to developing a nuclear weapon. Iran, under this deal, is much more restricted. They are under a lot more scrutinizing surveillance. And there is an international agreement that is agreeing to put back on a lot of these restrictions and security tactics if they are to break the deal. So yes, we do need to be skeptical, but we have to give diplomacy a chance in this regard.
And because I have to go to break real quick, Ali, do you think this is a legacy issue for the president?
I think his foreign policy legacy is not the greatest, and I think in the long run this will kind of add to that, so I don't think it's going to work.
Andrew, what say you quickly?
Real quickly, I think it is, because Iran is a sovereign power in the Middle East, and if we look at the broader spectrum, there's a lot of things going on where Iran's support is needed. Syria, they are working with us against ISIS, and Afghanistan against the Taliban. So we need to recognize that the problems in Israel and Palestine have affected our relationship with the Middle East. Maybe this can help that and put the objective of solving that issue more to the forefront than dealing with these issues.
Right, so of course looks like Congress is going to vote to approve this deal. We'll see what happens if maybe we have a Republican president in 2017, whether that president will uphold the deal or, as some have said, immediately scrap it on day one. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. It was a great debate. After this break, it's Rapid Fire. Stay with us.
It's been pretty busy around here with parcel and flex plans going on sale, so we need an extra pair of hands around the office.
Let's go G-Dub! Let's go G-Dub!
We had no idea you were bringing the Colonial Army.
Whoosh! Ah, G-Dub! Ah, G-Dub!
Hey George, I think you have an update for Firefox. Never mind.
I believe. I believe that. I believe that we. I believe that we will win.
Welcome back. Our panel joins us again for Rapid Fire, some quick answers to some quick questions. In order to avoid a government shutdown, Congress must pass a budget by October 1st. But some conservative Republicans are willing to allow a government shutdown in order to block federal funding for Planned Parenthood. A series of videos released by a pro-life organization apparently showed Planned Parenthood officials discussing the sale of fetal body parts. Allie, should the government shut down over Planned Parenthood funding?
Planned Parenthood does a lot of good, from mammograms to things like breast cancer screenings, but at the same time, selling fetal parts for revenue is illegal. They can sell them for research, but not revenue, and they need to realize that. And so Congress should undergo an investigation, probably separate those two entities of Planned Parenthood, the good and the bad, and just kind of do an investigation and see what is happening. And once they realize that, go from there.
Andrew, I imagine you just want a clean continuing resolution through the next fiscal year.
Yeah, that's hopeful, but we definitely do not want to shut down the government. I can't even believe that is on the table as an option again. I agree with what Allie said about Planned Parenthood. It does provide numerous services for women's rights, and that's very, very important. But there's no reason to launch such an investigation to look into unlawful practices on their behalf.
Right, and of course with a Congress that most Americans say is overwhelmingly dysfunctional, you never know what will happen. Thousands of refugees are attempting to escape war and poverty in Syria and northern Africa. President Obama has already proposed allowing 10,000 refugees to come to the U.S., but some Democrats instead want the president to sign off on 200,000. Andrew, what should the U.S. do, if anything, about this crisis?
Well, it's a situation where an international effort is needed, and we have to look at what's going on and ask not what is going on and why, but what is not going on and why not. And I think that lending our hand as much as we can to these refugees and aiding our allies in Germany and the rest of Europe is definitely essential in dealing with this crisis.
Allie, what do you think of President Obama's proposal to allow 10,000?
I would agree with what Andrew was saying. We have to really kind of help Europe and help the EU. We also have to kind of put more pressure on Assad and just make sure that they realize what's happening in Syria isn't okay and the United States isn't going to stand by it.
Mm-hmm. Well, of course, it's a very sad situation. And Pope Francis is making his first visit to the U.S., and the Pontiff's packed schedule includes a visit with President Obama and an address to Congress. Allie, how do you feel about the Pope's visit?
It's exciting, definitely, whenever any sort of religious head is coming to the United States, especially D.C. I am a little iffy about him being involved in the political sphere, especially kind of climate, economic reform, because that's not his jurisdiction. He's a religious figure. He shouldn't be dealing with things like that. But it's still obviously exciting that he's coming.
Andrew, how do you feel about Pope Francis?
I feel very opportunistic, and the reason why is because he's doing a lot of things that are uncandid of a Pope to do. He's going to a lot of U.S. prisons. He's meeting with people with mental illness. He is going to be meeting with people who are struggling economically, poor, homeless. And I think that his visit is actually going to shine light on a lot of aspects of American society that need help today, and that hopefully will become big aspects of the 2016 race going forward. Well, and also one more thing, just with the recent Supreme Court ruling of in favor of same-sex marriage, that's going to be also very interesting to see his take, because he is a pope who is a little bit warmer to the subject than past popes.
Right, definitely, and of course, one thing that's for sure is that the traffic here in D.C. will be pretty brutal. All right, thanks guys so much for joining us. It was a great debate. And with that, we end our debate here on Colonial Crossfire. Thank you so much to both Allie and Andrew for joining us. When we come back, Casey Decker has our debate fact check.
buzz started for me out on the line outside of the Barclays Center. You know, a lot of GW alumni filtering in.
I'm just so proud to be an alumni and be a part of this movement.
There hasn't been a team like this in 7, 8, 9 years.
I'd say we probably have over 1,000 people here, and you can feel the energy.
I graduated in 1991.
I graduated in 2009.
I graduated in 2005 from the Elliott School.
The School of Medicine and Health Sciences.
From the Columbian College.
If you want a place to be in the world tonight, it's right here with all of our alumni, students, parents, friends of the George Washington University.
It's just important to have a community that supports our student athletes.
I love this team, and I'm proud to support it.
Everyone that's participated and made this happen knows it didn't happen overnight.
What we're trying to do is develop students and student athletes to really impact the world.
This is an even better turnout than last year.
The first thing it can really do for us is get our name out there.
Applications the next year go through the roof.
Tonight, you are the George Washington University.
It raises the school spirit and makes us all proud to be Colonials.
And you have really galvanized our whole university community.
You're building a spirit and you're building a family within the university stronger than we've ever had before.
Gentlemen, go out there and raise high.
Crank it up.
Raise high!
Raise high!
Win, baby.
Crank it up.
Raise high, the buff and blue.
Welcome back. During our panel discussion, a team of fact-checkers monitored our debate. Casey Decker is here to fill us in on what we missed. Casey?
Well, Andrew, our first panelists of the year were spot on fact-wise. We found no factual errors from either Allie or Andrew. So, back to you.
All right, that's great then. Thank you, Casey. And now for Spilled Milk. Here's our tribute to the very best of late-night political comedy.
Today, my love has gone away. The bottle stands so long.
Cares about people. They like the way he communicates.
The way he communicates? He always sounds like he's about to fall asleep. Right? He has no energy.
I have plenty of energy. You know, operating on people for 10, 12, sometimes greater than 20 hours at a time.
I have plenty of energy.
A new report has found that Bernie Sanders has not been able to secure campaign endorsements from any senators, representatives, or governors. When reached for comment, most politicians just mouth, "She's listening." Ha okay, thank you for stopping by. Ha
The Jeb Bush has seen a drop in campaign donations lately. He's been forced to take commercial flights to campaign events. It got weird when the airline said they lost Jeb's baggage, and he was like, "You lost my brother?" No, I left your baggage. What do you think I said?
As he explained to his biographer, while he has never served, he has, quote, always felt he was in the military because he went to a military-themed boarding school. Yes. Same reason I feel like I was a NASCAR driver, because as a kid, I had a race car bed.
All right, well, that's all for this episode of Colonial Crossfire. For all the latest updates from our political team at any time, be sure to follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook. For all of us here at GWTV, I'm Andrew Desiderio. Thanks for getting caught in the crossfire with us. We'll see you right back here next time.